You need to build confidence. It's not something that you're born with. It is a skill. And just like anything else, if you want to build a skill, you have to work at it. We talk about self-belief, but to me, it goes beyond that. It's really believing in yourself, yes, and then you have to take that first step. So, and while you're taking the next step, you're still believing in yourself.
When you have enough of a confidence to be vulnerable and tell a professional like me, hey, can you help me change this about me? It's an appearance thing, and so in terms of life changes, what I do is relatively superficial, literally speaking. At the same time, it is something that if you have the right mindset, it's a real confidence booster. And like we were talking about earlier, it's not for other people, it's really for yourself.
There are so many people that when they look in the mirror, they see the negative right away, right? They see the things that they don't like. And so if you can take away that one thing that they don't like, they do start to see themselves differently. And it does add another layer of confidence.
You Are Beautiful, podcast with J. Kim, ND.
Welcome to the You Are Beautiful podcast with J. Kim, MD. I'm your host, Dr. J. Kim, a facial plastic surgeon, and I'm on a mission to make the world a more beautiful place, starting with you. There are 3 core tenets that I believe that you must embrace. The first is that you are beautiful. The second is that you are unique. And the third is that you are worth it. Let's dive into today's episode. In today's episode of the You Are Beautiful podcast, I have a very wonderful guest. Her name is Simone Knego. She is a TED Talk speaker. She is an author. She's an entrepreneur. She's even braved Mount Kilimanjaro. And today I have her as a guest on the show for her to share her experiences about finding beauty in everything that she does. And she does quite a lot, as you will see. So welcome to the show, Simone. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
All right. So first things first, I spent a lot of time in Buffalo, and I saw that you spent some time in Buffalo as well. Can you tell me a little bit about your upbringing there and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. So I was born in Buffalo. I was there until I was 13 years old, and my parents were both physicians. My dad actually, at the time, he worked in nuclear medicine. My mom was a radiologist, and they decided when I was starting high school that it was time to get out of the cold. And so they moved from Buffalo to Gainesville, Florida. And I don't think I've ever sweat more in my life in that transition.
That's right.
First of all, moving into high school in a different community was pretty tough, but it was hot and I was not used to it. But we stayed and went to high school and college in Gainesville. And then now I live in Sarasota, Florida. And, you know, I've done many things in my life, but I love where I am today in terms of what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I spent not as many cold winters in Buffalo as you did, but getting out of there was, in terms of warming my bones, it was very necessary, but I did enjoy my time there. I actually went to med school and residency there, so it was 9 long cold years, but a lot good came out of it. You know, I made a lot of good friends there. My colleagues whom I worked with, I still keep in touch with them. And of course, I met my wife there. So everything turned out well.
Yeah, it's a really nice community. It's just cold. And if you're used to it, I mean, I have a friend from when we were kids, she's still there and she loves it. And her mom's still there. She loves it. But I don't think I could do it anymore. I'm too used to going out in flip flops and, a t-shirt and shorts all the time.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So just like, we find beauty in places like Buffalo, some people consider it a diamond in the rough. I want to it's a maybe not so smooth segue, but finding the beautiful in a place like Buffalo to finding beauty in your own life, and impacting the world to make a more beautiful place. Can we just start the conversation in whatever arena you like? And because there are quite a few arenas of life where you do impact the world. How do you make the world a more beautiful place?
I'll start with my family. So we have 6 children. We adopted our youngest 3 children. So we have our oldest children are 28, 24, and 21. And they all look like me and my husband. And then our 20-year-old is from Ethiopia. Our 18-year-old is from South Korea. And our 16-year-old is also from Ethiopia. And I think our family does make the world more beautiful. You have a lot of, especially when you see what's going on in our country and having people not like people just because of who they are. They don't even know the people, right? That I just feel like it makes me proud to walk into a room and have people say, huh, that's beautiful.
It's really cool that, you have 3 biological children and you have 3 adopted children. And I imagine there were a lot of hectic years raising all those children. And yet I see a lot of patients of mine, clients of mine, who they're trying to conquer the world, kind of like you've been trying to, and you've been doing a great job at it. The thing about, I think, a lot of people who are in that frame of life is that they're pouring into others and yet they're running on empty themselves. Can you talk to me about your experience through that and how you help other people through that?
Absolutely. So it's something that I struggled with for a long time. It was everybody else was first. I mean, my 21-year-old daughter always jokes that anytime we would go out to eat, if she would ask me like, is that good? I would always say, oh, you can have it. She's like, I'm not asking for your food. She's like, eat your own food. You don't need to give everything to me. You have to do things for yourself. And I struggled with that for a long time, understanding that self-care isn't selfish, that self-care is, they say put your mask on first for a reason. I know some people don't agree with it, but I think that you have to take care of yourself. You have to do things for yourself because it makes you happier and it makes you a better person all around when you're taking care of yourself.
Growing up for me, seeing my parents and that generation always saying, oh, you can have it, that kind of resonates with me for sure. Was that a thing in your growing up as well?
Yeah, my parents always said that they wanted us to have a better life than they ever did. And, they grew up, both of them very poor, but they both got into medical school. They both were successful. But they always wanted us to have, especially when it came to education, it was such a big focus for them that no matter what, we had a really solid education that they paid for because they didn't want us to have to worry about that later. And they, were blessed that they were able to do that. But yeah, they would pretty much buy us stuff and not buy for themselves to make sure that there was enough.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like you said, self-care is not selfish. And I think especially more recently with other events going on around us, it being an election year, there always being in fear of a recession. It's like, you're kind of frozen in that mindset of, oh, I need to do something for others and I don't have time for me. I'm not able to make that time and effort, it seems like.
I think that when you make time for yourself, you realize what's important and you're able to schedule yourself in a way that you can make more time for other people. Instead of just running around from point A to point B with your head down, you really can take the time and say, okay, what do I want to do? Instead of just doing what you think you're supposed to do. And that I think is crucial in terms of being able to help other people. You got to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. I think just looking at, everything about your online presence, one thing that really stuck out to me was the REAL method and the REAL. So can you tell me about how you formulated that and how you use that in your own life and for your clients?
It started with a turning point in my life, which I don't know if you're going to ask me about it later, but I figure I'll just throw it in here because that's really how the REAL method started was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. So I was at a point in my life where I was really struggling. I really struggled with self-doubt. I judged everything about myself, what I wore, would people like me? And I had 6 kids. Like, I should have had it together, but I didn't. It just doesn't work that way, right? And what I didn't realize is that you need to build confidence. It's not something that you're born with. It is a skill. And just like anything else, if you want to build a skill, you have to work at it. So I was invited in 2015 to climb Mount Kilimanjaro to raise funds for the Livestrong Foundation. And I said yes. Yeah. And I said yes. And so it was completely out of my wheelhouse. I live in Florida, 12 feet above sea level in case of a storm surge. I climb the steps. That's about it. I've gone camping a couple times, and it was completely out of my wheelhouse. But basically, I said yes to a version of me I didn't know existed yet. And it was really about taking that first step. We talk about self-belief, but to me, it goes beyond that. It's really believing in yourself, yes, and then you have to take that first step. So, and while you're taking the next step, you're still believing in yourself. And I didn't realize how much I had struggled until I really got to the summit of that mountain, and maybe even more so once I came down. But it really made me realize that I don't need to worry about what anybody else is thinking. I don't need to compare myself to anybody else, that I can change my corner of the world just as I am. And I think we always think so many times that it has to be huge things that we do with our life to impact others. But to me, I really feel like the small things, the little things that we do every day can really change the world. And so what I realized, what worked for me is the REAL method, which is the R stands for respect your reflection.
Yes,
E is embrace your failures. Thank you. A is ask yourself what you want, because that's something that we don't do most of the time. Going back to what we first talked about, is that we're always doing for other people. We don't ask ourselves what we want. And L stands for love the woman in the mirror. And obviously, if I'm talking to men, it's love the person in the mirror, because I think we all struggle. We're all human, right? We all have our own doubts. I call them our daily doubts. And it's so important that we realize that we're not alone and that we can help each other. And it starts by helping ourselves.
I really love all of that. And especially through summiting Mount Kilimanjaro, I just want to ask, what part of that journey was the most beautiful?
The people I went with, honestly. I mean, the journey itself, getting to the summit, and we had blue skies when we got to the summit. So that was incredible to be able to just see. Actually, I'll give you 2 answers. One, I didn't know anybody, right? I joined this group, and I was paired up with a woman named Rhonda, and she is a breast cancer survivor. The people on this trip were so inspirational. Everybody was willing to help no matter what. Like, we really worked together as a team. And I think that was just incredible, because you think about leadership in the boardroom, but leadership on a mountain, figuring out how you're going to work with strangers, climbing up a mountain as a team. And that to me was life-changing. The second part that I thought was incredible was I had this rare moment when I got to, so there's basically 3 summits. And when we got to the first one, whereas, there's a sign where I forget how many feet we were at. And I went to take my phone out to take a picture, and I had 3 bars. And so I was able to call home. And it was really an incredible moment, because my husband answered the phone, and I'm crying, and, you can hear the kids cheering, and then the dogs are barking, and then the kids are yelling at the dogs to stop barking, and the kids are yelling at each other to stop yelling. And, I was like, okay, this is why I'm here. It was such a beautiful moment that they got to experience with me. Right. So it was really cool.
That last image reminds me of what we've been seeing at the Olympics. And sometimes family can't go with the athletes to the arena, to Paris. And so they set up a little TV station afterwards. And after they finish their event or race, they go up to that screen and say hi to their family. I imagine that that's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah, because your family is honestly the most important part of your life, right? I mean, such a big factor in everything that we do. And you want them to be able to experience these things with you. And when they can't, it's hard. And I didn't think they would be able to. So, I mean, I did certain things like when I first started, I would try to send updates to my daughter's teacher because they were trying to follow me in her classroom. And that was really fun. But being able to, and I did, there's a book called Flat Stanley. I don't know if you know what that is, but anyways, it's a book that my kids read. And basically there's this, the character, he gets sent around the world inside an envelope. He's flat. So, one of my cousins, her daughter was doing a project for it. And so she said, she wants to know if you would bring Flat Stanley to the summit of Kilimanjaro because she would be the coolest kid ever. And I was like, I'll do it. So I have all these pictures with Flat Stanley on the summit of Kilimanjaro. But yeah, I think everything we do, we want to be able to experience it with the closest people in our lives. And so being able to have that experience there was really incredible.
Absolutely. That's really very inspirational. I'm sure that seeing your kids, getting that call from you on the first summit, that was, like, wow, mom did that. I want to conquer the world too. And just continuing with that theme of you and the relationship with your kids, they're growing up in a much different world than our generation grew up. I'm a tiny bit younger than you, maybe.
Oh, I think so. Not a tiny bit.
And so, when we grew up, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have all this constant messaging, these ads, these influencers. So when it comes to your kids, what's your approach to them for you to tell them, hey, you're beautiful, you're unique, you're worth it? What's your approach in helping them really find that confidence in themselves?
We talk about it all the time. I think that open communication is so important. I think a lot of times we take for granted, we think our kids know what we're thinking, and they don't. And just having these conversations about what you see on social media, those are the shiny moments. Those aren't real. Like you're seeing these. And what I love to see is when you see supermodels or celebrities when they're not wearing their makeup, so that people can understand that they are human, right? But it's so different now that they're going to have access no matter what, right? It's not like you can take away the phone and take away, I mean, in school, they use computers all the time. So, but just having them understand that everybody struggles, what's real, what's not. Like beauty really starts from within. Everybody is unique. Everybody is beautiful. And for me, it's really about building that confidence to not care what anybody else is doing. And again, I talk to them about it all the time. Maybe sometimes too much. I mean, I have a podcast with my 21-year-old daughter that we just rebranded.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah. It was called the Daughter Dearest podcast, but we just rebranded it to Her Unshakable Confidence, because that's what we talk about all the time. Love is that. The things that we struggle with and the things that we need to work on, and showing people that, again, that they're not alone, that we all have our struggles.
Yeah. I think as a child of immigrants growing up, my parents didn't want me to see them struggle. And so that is good in that you're shielded from adulting, so to speak. As a child, it might be hard to see your parents struggle, that they're human, that they're not invincible. At the same time, the way that you approach your kids, I mean, I imagine they see your vulnerable sides. They see when you don't quite have it all together, or you're not, it's not a perfect day, obviously. So it's not what we grew up with, but I think our kids, the future generation, will be really a lot better for that.
Yeah. When I was growing up, the comment I heard a lot from my parents, and I have my mom is still alive. My dad has passed away in 2019, but they were great parents. My mom's still a great mom, but so many times I heard the comment, what will other people think? I'm like, why are we so focused on what other people will think? How about teaching me self-respect and how what I think, like what I think is the right thing to do, instead of worrying about what anybody else is thinking. And it is a different mindset. And a lot of what with my kids, I mean, sometimes the lessons are, well, here's what not to do. Like, yeah, I messed that one up royally. Yeah. Think about that one. Yeah, that's a mistake. But I do think it's good for them to see that, because a lot of times I think our kids feel that they can't make mistakes because they don't think their parents make mistakes. And
Right.
I think the whole point is to celebrate when you make a mistake, to understand that you can still move forward past it. And I can tell you, when I was growing up, like, whew, don't make a mistake. Don't fail at anything.
What
If
will
you
other
fail,
people
you're a
think?
failure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's kind of baked into our educational system too, or we're told to think that way, is that, oh, you have to get good grades in school. That's a measure of success. When you get out here to real life, and of course, there are going to be obstacles, there are going to be tough times, hurdles, mistakes. And when we don't realize and learn from our mistakes in a younger setting with fewer consequences, it's like, oof, it kind of hits you like a ton of bricks a little more.
yeah. And I think that a lot of times we associate failing at something with being a failure. And I think those are two separate things. I think that, when we fail, and that's why I love to say embrace your failures, because
Yes.
how do you think people move forward? How do you learn? You don't learn because you got everything right all the time. You learn because you screwed something up, and then you figured out, oh, okay, how could I do this better next time? But I think a lot of people are very afraid of failing at anything. And they actually, there was on the Olympics, I think it was yesterday, or the day before, one of the divers, I believe she hit her feet on the board. And so, and of course they called it disastrous, right? Because she got a 0. And it was heartbreaking, right? I mean, you've worked for 4 years, and her dad afterwards was giving her this pep talk about how proud he was of her. And basically at the end of the conversation was, today just wasn't your time. That's it. This isn't a stopping point. Today just wasn't it. So keep going. And I think we need to say that more, is that, okay, today wasn't your day. Okay. Tomorrow's going to be different.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. The thing that I notice when it comes to my patients, and I encourage them that our relationship, it's not me telling you what to do for your beauty kind of journey. It is very much a collaboration. And the other part of it that I emphasize is that it is a journey, and journeys are not straightforward. When you were summiting Mount Kilimanjaro, I'm sure it was not straightforward by any means.
No.
And so when you are in the process of getting from the current you to the version of you that you haven't yet realized, there are obstacles along the way. There are hurdles. It's not straightforward. So when I talk to my patients, some of them have had, if they have surgery, if they have other procedures, and they talk to me or my staff a few days later and say, oh, I'm too red, or I'm too swollen, or, oh my gosh, why did I do this? Then there's that pep talk of, hey, this is not the end. This is part of the journey. The vast majority of the time, there is nothing wrong per se with the process of getting to that result. So that's where I feel like the real method, I mean, there is a variation of that I incorporate in my own conversations with my patients. So the real method is really, it resonates with me and with my patient experience completely.
Don't you think that we live in a world, I mean, just when you're talking about patients and how because I know my husband is a surgeon, he's a neurosurgeon, but there's definitely things that happen. And we live in a society of instant gratification. So the expectation is, if you're doing this, then as soon as you're done with it, it should be exactly how I wanted it, right? Versus okay, hello, it takes time to get to that point. And just like anything we do in our lives, like nothing happens overnight, right? Maybe if you win the lottery, but
Sure.
nothing happens overnight. To study a new language takes time, to write a book takes time, to heal from surgery takes time. It all takes time. But we live in a world where, we want the next big thing right now. Do you feel like that's
Absolutely.
one of the things?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways, because in terms of patient expectations, in terms of any kind of journey that you go through in life, that you lead your clients through, that's exactly the mindset of, oh, I put this much in, so it's like vending machine mindset. It should come out right away. The On the flip side of that, as healthcare professionals, especially in the plastic surgery or aesthetic world, we want to show the wows and the, oh my gosh, I want to do this with that office, with that surgeon, with that injector or esthetician, whoever it may be. So I guess it goes both ways in that, yes, we want to put out our best before and afters. And when I do that, yes, we get traffic, we get patients in the office. At the same time, almost to a fault sometimes, I feel like, oh, I'm telling you what this journey is going to be like. There's going to be ups and downs. As long as you stick with it, I'm going to stick with you. We're going to take that journey together. And it resonates with a lot of people, but it doesn't resonate with others as well. So that's my way of figuring out, does this person have the right mindset, or is this person doing it for someone else? Like you said, your mom used to say, what will other people think?
I think about that a lot because I feel like when you're talking about beauty and aesthetics, a lot of times people don't have the right, I don't even say intentions, but they're doing something to impress someone else, or they're hoping that if I get breast implants, that my husband is going to stop seeing the other woman and stay with me. Or if I, and I really think that whatever you do in terms of beauty, it's for you. So
Yeah.
I can tell you, most of the time, it's actually funny. Most of the time on our podcast, I have my hair up. I still need to dye my grays. And it's not that I don't like dressing up and getting made up. I do, but I do it for me when I want to do it. I don't do it out of obligation to anything else. Like, I'm sitting around on a Saturday, I'm wearing a t-shirt and leggings, and I'm comfortable. And I know for a lot of people, that's a very hard thing. They want to be made up. We lived in Texas for a bit, and I swear I would go to the grocery store, and every woman I would see was like full face makeup to go to the grocery store. And
Right.
if they're doing that for themselves, fantastic. But if they're doing that because they're worried about what someone else thinks, I just think that's not the direction that we need to be going. And so that's another thing that I really talk to my kids about, is that, you can do whatever. I mean, I say to my friends too, hey, I get Botox. I do it for me. It's not because I worry that, oh, my husband's going to think I have wrinkles. He thinks I'm beautiful no matter what.
Exactly.
And I think I'm beautiful. So, but I do it because, hey, I wanted something just a little bit different. And it's never for anyone else. And one more story in relation to that. I was on a friend's podcast, and he was telling me a story about how he went to this event. And he's like, every time I go to these events, these women, it's like all women, and they're all super dressed up. And so I sat with a group of women, and he said, so tell me, why do you get so dressed up? Why do you put on so much makeup for an event like this? And they said, he's like, are you trying to impress men? Because there's really no men here. And they're like, no, we're trying to impress the other women. And I thought that was really interesting, because I think the only person, this goes back to self-respect, is that you need to think about what you think about yourself, not worrying about what anybody else does.
Yeah. I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. So,
Yeah.
so actually, I want to pivot back again to the podcast that you have with your daughter, Olivia, right? That's her name?
Yes.
Okay. And so what was the impetus for starting the podcast? Who is the audience? What do you like to talk about on the show?
We're on a phone call one day. She was living in New York City at the time. She went to school, her undergraduate up at Fordham. And we have these really ridiculous conversations sometimes, like, and they're authentic, they're raw, they're real, whatever we're talking about, like she has Crohn's, we'll talk about, she can't make it home in time. We'll put it that way.
Sure.
And so, we're real with our conversations because we want people to understand that no matter what they're doing, they're not alone. And so we were having this conversation. I said, what did you think about doing a podcast? She's like, that'd be fun. Let's do it. And that's how it started. And we've been doing it. We're recorded episode 59 today. And
Great.
We talk about everything to do with women. We've only had women guests so far. We record every other week. We record ourselves. And then the following week we record with a guest so that we keep it different each time.
Okay.
And today we talked about, celebrating the new podcast and celebrating wins. So we talked a lot about the Olympics and watching Simone Biles talk openly about mental health and talking about her therapist and how important it is to have these conversations and positive affirmations, watching the athletes talk themselves up with positive self-talk. And these things should not be embarrassing. These things should just be part of our lives. So we talk about really anything to do with women or anything that we struggle with. And it's been a blast. And she's in law school now. So we actually recorded an episode earlier today because we have to figure out schedule wise how we're gonna keep it going no matter what, but just got to be a little bit more creative in terms of our time.
Yeah. I think compared to her prior Olympic victories, seeing Simone go through that made these victories even more worth celebrating because she's been through hell and back, right? And so I really thought, she performed well, obviously, but the thrill of victory seemed even more beautiful this time around.
The other thing that I thought while watching her is that she looks happy. She doesn't look just completely stressed. I mean, some of these athletes look like they're so stressed that they can't enjoy the moment. I mean, I can't imagine going to the Olympics, right? I mean, like I said, I climbed the stairs. That's about it. So I can't imagine going to the Olympics, but to go there and be so stressed the whole time that you can't enjoy that moment is a killer. And so it was so refreshing. And to see that is contagious, right? So her whole team, you can see how she talks them up really makes a difference.
It was during one of the event finals where you could hear Simone audibly cheering for her competitor.
Yeah.
And if you're not fully secure about who you are and your performance, you wouldn't do that. I don't think the 2016 Simone Biles would have done that. And so I thought that was amazing as well.
Yeah. I think a big thing with confidence is that you want to raise, to bring other people with you. It's not that you're trying to, and when it comes to individual sports as well, the only person you really are competing against, in my mind, is yourself. So if you're doing your best, then it shouldn't be a factor. And you should be able to cheer for the other people that are competing because you want them to do their best. It's not a real competition if the other people aren't doing their best. So that was really refreshing. And I think we saw that quite a few times in the Olympics where how they were cheering for each other, high-fiving each other, really across the board, different athletes. Now, some not so much, but other ones really being supportive of the other athletes around them.
Absolutely. I like that. I mean, the daughter Dearest name was really cool, and I enjoyed some of the content that I was listening to. And now that you've had a name change, that word confidence is just something that I think women, but all of us need to hear, but especially women, because society kind of shuns that word when it comes to empowering women. And I'm grateful that you, as an author, as an entrepreneur, as a podcast host, in so many different ways are part of that movement.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people think about confidence as being the loudest person in the room, and that's completely the opposite. I mean, being confident is that inner confidence where you don't have to speak up all the time, right? You speak up when you know it's valuable, and you don't have to overpower other people. It's really about being comfortable in your skin around people who may make you uncomfortable and understanding that their beliefs about you have to do with them. It has nothing to do with you.
Right. And I think along those lines, I think of when my patients come to the office, they come because they feel like they want to change something. And so that's a vulnerable thing to tell a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have enough of a confidence to be vulnerable and tell a professional like me, hey, can you help me change this about me? It's an appearance thing. And so in terms of life changes, what I do is relatively superficial, literally speaking. At the same time, it is something that if you have the right mindset, it's a real confidence booster. And like we were talking about earlier, it's not for other people. It's really for yourself.
Yes, it is superficial, but I don't think that it is not completely superficial, because you think there are so many people that when they look in the mirror, they see the negative right away, right? They see the things that they don't like. And so if you can take away that one thing that they don't like, they do start to see themselves differently. And it does add another layer of confidence. For a lot of women, I mean, really building the confidence from the inside out, but understanding that if you don't like something about yourself, change it. I mean, that's what we have those options for a reason. And I think it's important to remember that it's not superficial. If it's something that bothers you, I mean, we do that with our hair color. We do that with our nails.
Sure.
We those are all things that nobody else talks about. Like, oh, you got your nails done. Great. Oh, they're purple. Great. But it seems like, oh, you got this done. Oh, and it shouldn't be like that, right? If you don't like something, change it.
Yeah, I definitely think one of the good things that social media has done is that it has made plastic surgery, it has made Botox less taboo overall, because more people have been forthright about sharing their experiences, their outcomes. Of course, there are many people on the opposite side who fake it, or trolls who disparage people who do undergo that journey. But going back to the positive impact is that this message is able to reach more people in terms of the motivation for it and the positive outcomes of it.
What I've realized over time, it's really interesting, especially with women. They don't like to say that they've done something until someone else says it. Like not about them, but like, for example, I was on a women's retreat and I said something about, yeah, I get Botox. And the women who had not said anything, I would say half of them had, but they didn't want to talk about it until someone else stepped up to the plate first. And I think when we talk about things that we go through, choices that we make, all it does is help other people. So if people are judging, let them judge. Like, I'm not worried about that. But if you can help somebody else by sharing what you've experienced, I think it's worth it.
Absolutely. That, and just building that confidence and then getting that camaraderie around you, it's really impactful. So going back to the word confidence, you have what we call a confidence archetype. So can you work us through that?
So I have a quiz where you can that you can take, and it will tell you your confidence archetype, and it will also give you things that you can work on. That obviously that stuff that you can find on my website, but also things that you can work on. I think a lot of times we think, oh, I'm not confident, or I am confident, but we don't understand that there's different kinds of confidence. And I think that it is important to understand that not everybody's confidence is the same, right? I mean, I'm definitely more of an introvert when it comes to stuff. I call myself an extroverted introvert because I would prefer to sit on the couch and watch a movie, and, I'll go to things, and I will definitely pull myself out of my shell to talk to people, because I do love talking to people. The more people you talk to, the more things you learn.
Absolutely.
But there's so many, there are different kinds of confidence. And so I think a lot of people will say that they're not confident because what they think of is the person that is boisterous and, always the life of the party. And that person might actually truly be struggling because they put on a show just because they think that they want other people to see them that way, although maybe inside they don't feel that way at all. So I would love for people to take the quiz and see what they think. And, I write a blog article every week, not always about confidence, about all kinds of different things. But it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So for us listeners, and if you're watching on YouTube, no matter what platform you're taking in this episode, we will leave that link as well as other links for Simone down below as well. Take me through the creation of the book, The Extraordinary UnOrdinary You. I see it in the background there. And I haven't written a book, but I've heard that it is quite a journey to write and publish a book. So walk me through who you're speaking to and what kind of message you really want to send.
The book, it's funny because I really wrote the book with a female audience in mind, because I'm talking about realizing what you're capable of and recognizing that the little things you do every day matter, really towards women. But I can tell you, every man that has read it has been like, wow, that was really impactful. And so I wrote, a lot of the stories are about my children's adoptions, about climbing Kilimanjaro, about things that I've gone through in my life that have really impacted me and, helped me change the way that I saw myself. Because like I said, I'm someone that struggled with self-doubt for so long that I didn't realize what I was capable of. And so I decided, let me write a book. It's funny because I said to my husband, I have a master's in accounting. My background is I'm a CPA. I stopped that a long time ago. But so when I said to him, I was like, so I think I'm going to write a book. And he was like, okay, can't wait to read it. I was like, thank you. Thanks for the support. Thanks for not saying like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? But it was a big process because writing wasn't, I wouldn't say it wasn't natural for me at first. When I was in elementary school, I had a teacher that told me that I was like the worst writer ever. And that I never got, I never got that out of my mind, but I'm not the worst writer ever. So I started writing, and I really loved the process of writing. When I was writing about my kids, I wanted to be very particular because I'm writing my version of their story, right? They have, and every time you tell a story, it's going to be, there's a different perspective. And so I wanted to be really careful to talk about what I saw, what I thought, not what they, I don't know what they were thinking at the time. So that was sensitive. And I can tell you that I knew that I did good with that because my youngest daughter, when I told all the kids, I'm going to write a book, most of them were like, that's awesome. A couple were like, yeah, great, whatever. And then my youngest daughter said, can you not write about me? I was like, okay, I'll write about my five favorite kids and not you. That great. And so I told her, I said, I'm writing about you, but I promise that it will, you're gonna like it. She's like, she was 13 at the time. And she said, I'm sure I'm not going to like it. And I was like, okay. So we got the book in the house, the first copies, and I asked her to take one picture for social media. That was the one picture she took for social media since it came out in 2020. And then I saw her take a copy of it and tuck it under her sweatshirt and go upstairs. And I said to my husband, I was like, she took a book. And he was like, Millie. I was like, no, like she took a book, like she's actually going to read it. And she FaceTimed me about an hour later with tears streaming down her face, saying, I didn't know the story about Ari's brother. I didn't know the story about Noah and his name. I didn't. And I said, well, have you read about you yet? And she said, not yet. That's next. I said, well, call me back or I'll come up after you read that. And I said, so what do you think? And she said, I think I should say thank you. And I was like, no. I was like, you cannot say thank you for us adopting you. I said, you can thank me for making you breakfast or driving you to your friend's house. Like you're my daughter. So try again. And she said, it makes me feel like I want to do something nice for someone else. And I said, okay, I can take that. So that was that was beautiful. That was really beautiful. And so I loved the process of it. You know, what they don't tell you when you write a book, it's writing the book is one thing, marketing the book is a whole nother thing. That is probably the hardest thing to get people to really know about it and understand what it's about. And I'm actually working on my second book right now. So
wonderful.
This one, right on brand, all talking about unshakable confidence and my stories, other people's stories. And so I'm really excited for that one. And I'm going to do this differently. The last one I really self-published. You can get it on any of the websites online, but I really want to try to go a little bit of a different route. I don't think I want to go like a regular publisher, but some kind of hybrid publisher this time where it can be in bookstores and that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, for our audience, we're going to leave the link to her book, The Extraordinary UnOrdinary You. What a great title. We're going to leave those links as well. And we look forward to the Unshakable Confidence book, which will come out sometime, hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, sometime next year. It's a process. It's a long process.
Yeah. So there was a lot to cover with our podcast guest, Simone Knego, author of The Extraordinary UnOrdinary You, podcast host with her daughter, a summit climber of Mount Kilimanjaro, and a beautiful woman to boot. So one thing I like to ask all my podcast guests is, outside of what we've talked about so far, can you tell me about another aspect of your life where you find beauty?
I think I try to find it in everything that I look at. One of the things I find is I also do keynote speaking, and watching women have those aha moments of, yeah, okay, I am beautiful. No, I don't need to worry about what anybody else thinks. But beyond that, I would tell you that just in nature in general, we live on the water, and my daughter our youngest daughter never wants us to sell our house because we get dolphins here all the time. And It's so funny because it just never gets old, right? To see something in the wild that is not human, that it just really, it never gets old. So, she'll be like dolphin, and everybody comes out to see the dolphin. And so really beauty in nature is probably one of the most powerful things.
There's something timeless about that. And I think I heard it on maybe Mel Robbins' podcast, where one of her guests said that you should do something that's timeless every day. And seeing dolphins, seeing water, seeing nature, it doesn't matter if you live in 2024 or AD 24, those things are always there. And so finding beauty in what you see and also in who you are, I think those are really two of the pillars of living that life of unshakable confidence.
Absolutely.
So we're going to leave the links to the Confidence Archetype resource, as well as her book, Extraordinary UnOrdinary You, in our description down below. And if people want to reach you, connect with you, work with you, Simone, how can they do that?
Best way is to check out my website, SimoneKnego.com. I know it's, Knego, Knego. I'm the only one in the world. So with that full name. But yeah, check me out there and send me an email and send me a message, because I would love to connect.
Thank you so much, Simone, for being on the You Are Beautiful podcast with J. Kim, MD. We reviewed a lot of wonderful topics about your beauty journey, about how your life is so beautiful. And we look forward to more great things from you, your podcast, your second book, and everything else. Again, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And until next time, everyone, remember the 3 core tenets that 1, you are beautiful, 2, you are unique, and 3, you are worth it. Till next time, take care.